Have you ever had so much shit that you want to talk about, but you like have to choose just one? And the fact that there's so much that you'd have loved to talk about is like hurting you because it's like you're spoiled for choice. Well, that's actually how I'm sort of feeling right now, because I have so much that I want to talk about. But for now, I'm going to start with this very interesting story from our land where we have too many crazy things, the US of A, where a man from Florida crashed head on into a FedEx truck while receiving head. Now, I normally don't say this, but no pun intended. And to a certain level, I kind of feel for him because unlike FedEx, he wasn't particularly good at handling his package at that point.
Get ready for the battle of the sexes.
Honestly, if you're someone that uses IG a lot and you don't know this story, then I kind of feel for you because it's sort of like you've been under a virtual rock. Because I feel like this story has been circulating through like some of the bigger gossip pages and a couple of news pages for like the past 1.5, if not 2 weeks. But to give some context, I'm just going to read the entire thing for you. So WPLG reported that a man and a woman were found naked in an SUV after getting into a head-on collision with the FedEx truck. Now, the fire rescue said that the woman was performing oral sex on the man while he drove the SUV, leading to the incident. End quote. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it seems like either this guy was getting it for the very first time, or he's just one of those guys that's very sensitive and comes very quickly to head. Because the thing with roadhead, and I'm not particularly saying this because I have, like multiple years of practice in this shit, is like it requires the person driving to have a lot of concentration on the road. Like, of course you can enjoy it and you can have pleasure, but like you need to concentrate on the road. But if you're at the point where you're like trying to concentrate and you're trying to nut, like that shit it's a bit wild for a guy. Which is why I'm sure there's tons of guys that have thought about roadhead and have wished that they could get it and they think that it'll be cool. The only thing is, it's a fairly dangerous thing. So if you're a bit of a daredevil, you can try it. Just make sure that your dick isn't particularly sensitive and you're not too horny. Otherwise, you might end up losing concentration, which, like in this guy's case, will probably result in a crash. And the worst thing is when you're taken to the police station and you have to like write a statement so that the insurance guys can like make the claims and everything, like this guy will have to go and write there that even though he was the one who was driving, she drove him crazy and that caused the crash. Like, that in and of itself is going to be a little bit hard for the insurance people to kind of look at you with a straight face. But fortunately for him, the next time he meets up with the boys and they knew that he was trying to have this thing with this shorty, when they ask him about the entire thing, he's just gonna answer it with 2 words. She sucks. But anyways, that said, we do need to move on to something that sucks a lot less, but does go down a little bit harder. And that is this podcast, which I definitely should have started in my very typical fashion, where I start by saying, welcome to Breakdown on West Side, your number one breakdown podcast, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. The man on the mic is a man who loves his head on the move, but fortunately has never crashed. He's a man who likes his women the same way he likes his yogurt. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. The show is Battle of the Sexes, our weekly love, sex, and relationships show, where I get to talk about people getting head on the road. I might throw a dilemma in there somewhere. People may not agree with me, but at some point I usually come to some conclusion. And if you do agree with that conclusion, then well and good. But if you disagree or you agree and you still want to give some feedback on it, then the place to do it is at Breaktime on Westside on IG. The DMs are always open there. On Facebook as well, it is at Breaktime on Westside, and on Twitter, you can slide into my personal DMs, which is at BagakaTheD. Then you can slide it on over there and I will take it and I will handle it accordingly. Now, it's a new season with a lot of stories that are sort of piling up, and of course I am going to try and handle as many of them as relevantly possible. And for those that I feel will require a bit more talking, then I will put them on the main topic. But before I get to that, I do want to start with a very interesting story, and it comes from nearly the same place as Roadhead Gone Crazy, which I did cover earlier, and it is a 28-year-old teacher from Oklahoma who was charged for sending a 16-year-old student naked photos, aka nudes, after telling him she heard rumors that he liked her. Now, I'm not even gonna get into the story already. Like, y'all already know. Like, this shit is like a fantasy for us guys. And the fact that this shit is happening to people and someone is ready to snitch and show their friends such shit, I think is definitely dumb. But I will continue on that for a bit. So let me just read the story out for you. It says, and I quote, Ivy Renault, 28 years old, is charged with using technology to engage in communication for sexual prurient interest with a minor, and a warrant is out for her arrest. The former Midwest City middle school teacher has not yet been taken into custody. Oklahoma's age of consent is 16. Wait, hold up. Why the fuck is she supposed to be charged again? Hold up, wait. Alright, let me finish. Oklahoma's age of consent is 16, but adults in a position of authority can still be charged for having sexual relationships with children aged 18 and under. Court documents reveal that Renault met the teen, who is a student in the district, at a soccer practice. Renault allegedly then added the teen on Snapchat and sent him 3 or 4 nude photos and an inappropriate video, which the teen showed to a few of his teammates, according to court records. End quote. Now, first of all, I feel like the 16-year-old teenager needs to be found and needs to be beaten senselessly, because this is actually the problem that I had. Like, this guy got nudes of a teacher that he supposedly liked and would possibly like to bang and probably beats his meat to, and he decided to show his friends. Like, I know there's a whole grooming thing that people are about to bring here, but yo, I have to talk like a real nigga over here. Like, why the fuck did he start showing his teammates? Like, show them after you've smashed, not before. Like, oh my goodness, this attention-seeking wannabe type shit that some teenagers have is just too much. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm saying all of this because, like, there's that high school fantasy of like banging a super hot teacher. Like, if you were in St. Mary's, aka Saints, aka the high school that I was in around 2011, especially around the beginning of the year, then you'd probably remember Miss Frida, because Miss Frida was like the finest teacher that us guys had at that time. She had a booty and she had a face to boot. Like, that English teacher was the finest thing in that school for like an entire term. And I don't even think she was in her 30s and shit. So to kind of think about it, like, if I got such a chance, like where I'm busy chatting up with a teacher on Snapchat and then she sends me a couple of nudes, the last thing I do is show the homies. The first thing I do is make sure I get to tap that ass. And I'm not saying this because I particularly want to smash her, I'm just trying to put things into context. But at the end of the day, like, if niggas got a chance, they'd probably do it. And hell, there were definitely a couple of niggas who'd beat their meat to her, or, you know, in this case to this teacher. So to think that this guy decides, you know what, I've just seen a couple of nudes on Snapchat and there's this really, really nice, you know, bit of her being inappropriate and shit and showing me possibly tits and pussy and booty and shit. Like, the first thing I'm going to do is show my friends. Like, the fuck? Honestly. There's so much other shit that you could have done. Like, you could have gone and beat your meat to it. You could have gone and written it in your diary if you have one. You could have gone and ticked one of those things off your bucket list. Like, you could have done so many other things instead of showing it to your homies. Because the problem with showing other niggas is, when you're in high school, niggas talk. I know the saying is that girls talk and it's mostly guys that aren't expected to talk, but guys talk. In high school, I can remember if anyone had some intimate shit happen to them and they thought they were doing it in the privacy of their own place, that story would end up leaking in like a couple of days, if not hours or minutes. Like, there was very, very little that was kept secret. So you have a chance to do what it is that the other kid in the other high school that I spoke about last season did, which is, you know, smash the teacher a little bit here and there. And the first thing that you decide to do is show the homies, as if they'd actually let you take that W and not be jealous about it. Like, of course someone got jealous and decided to snitch on that shit. But at the end of the day, it does tend to show you how dumb high school people can be. Even though I know that I was in high school at some point in my life, I need to accept the fact that I was probably dumb to an extent. But either way, I guess that's a fantasy that won't be fulfilled in this case. And I'm just gonna leave it at that and then move it on to our main topic of today. Now, a couple of months ago, I happened to be out at night on a Friday and ended up meeting a friend, and we ended up going for a couple of drinks. And at some point, we ended up meeting a couple of people in the same area, and, you know, we ended up joining tables, and we decided to continue drinking and chilling and just chatting about random shit, because it's not like we all knew each other or anything. But at some point, while we were busy, you know, just like chopping it up, making a couple of stories, we brought out this whole conversation about, you know, your man's or your lady getting to know your friends or getting close to them. So all of a sudden, one of the shorties in this entire group of people loses her shit and she's like, no, that would never happen. Oh, you know, these men are trash. Oh, you can't trust them, blah, blah, blah. So guys all of a sudden stop and they look at her. But eventually that dialogue kind of continues for a bit, and she eventually revealed that her ex-husband actually cheated on her with her best friend to the point where he got her pregnant and then dumped her and went to stay and be with the best friend. And of course, in classic Nairobi fashion, people tell you sorry, but fucking heal. And then we sort of kind of continued with the other conversations that we are having. But I was actually thinking about that shit recently. Don't ask me how it popped up, but I was thinking about it recently. And it did kind of hit me that that would have been a very complicated situation for any guy to be in. Like, when you end up with a shorty and her best friend, and you and the best friend have something or might have something between each other, and there's your shorty there, like, it becomes a little bit complicated. And I know people have said and made this joke that you shouldn't let your girlfriend, you shouldn't let your partner stop you from being with your soulmate or your potential soulmate. And I can get how that entire statement makes a lot of sense. But when you kind of think about it, in such a scenario, it becomes very complicated and very hard to deal with as a guy. And I'll sort of explain it to you, but I sort of need to try and rewrite that scenario in sort of like my own hypothetical way. Mainly because I don't endorse cheating, and I'm trying to look at a scenario where the cheating doesn't really occur, but the problem is still there because it does happen for a lot of guys. So here's the one that I came up with. So you and shorty have been together for a while, and eventually at some point you guys have a spat, it turns into a couple of issues, you guys have a bit of a bad moment, a bad stint in the relationship, then you decide to go on break. While you're on break, you end up meeting with her best friend at the club or at some random place. You guys tell yourselves that it's platonic, you guys have 1 or 2 drinks, and at some point you end up smashing. Now, of course, you can't exactly unshag yourselves. And when you guys look at each other and you actually realize that it felt really, really good, and you guys actually start feeling something, you guys do it a little bit more. But soon after that happens, shorty comes back and she's like, you know what, I want us to get back together. I am done with this break, and she calls, the break is over and you all should be back together. And you say yes, you know, you love the shorty. Like, you guys were together and you loved what it is that you guys made of your relationship. But now you're in a relationship with your girlfriend, but you sort of have a thing for her best friend. And guess what? Her best friend has a thing for you. And I kid you the hell not, there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of people that actually get into such situations, if not something similar. You've sort of ended up having a thing, or you sort of realize that you have the feels for your girlfriend's best friend. And you know, she probably even has the feels for you. So what ends up happening at that point? And it's a very interestingly complex situation and dilemma. And considering that this dilemma is a lot more practically possible for a lot of you than some of the other ones that I've mentioned, how about I break this one down in the typical systematic way that your typical logical guy would probably do. Because I have to start by saying this situation is a very damned if you do, damned if you don't type situation. Because you're damned if you drop your girlfriend and choose to go for the best friend, because there's a sort of reputational damage that you'll get. Because her friends will hate you, your friends, or at least the friends that you guys share, will probably hate you, and because it's her best friend, she'll be hated as well. And I feel like hers might probably even be worse, but I don't entirely know how the babes would handle this entire scenario. But either way, there's gonna be a lot of hate on one side for a very, very long time. Now, on the other side of it, if you decide to stay with your girlfriend, then there's a pretty good chance that you are going to cheat. And whether I endorse cheating or not, the moment you choose to go down that road, it gets even more complicated. Because on one side, that's the whole you guys trying to act as normal as possible when y'all are smashing, but your girlfriend doesn't know it and y'all are in the same room. It's gonna end up being very, very awkward for all of you. And the thing is, your girlfriend might notice that awkwardness, and the moment she notices it on both ends, not just one, then we're gonna have problems. Or at least you're going to have problems, because if she decides to do any investigating of any sort and she finds that shit out, y'all are fucked. Now, on the other hand, assuming that that doesn't really happen and y'all are good at hiding shit and everything, and you guys end up doing that shit for a while, the whole, you know, sneaky fuck here and there, then at some point this shorty is gonna want more than just a fuck, because she's gonna be there when you're treating your shorty all nice and sweet and giving her the affection. and being the nice caring boyfriend that your shorty loves so much. And because your girlfriend is gonna be talking about how sweet you are, the nice things that you do, what you've been doing for her, at some point she's gonna realize that all you've been giving her is good pipe, and usually that's not enough. So at some point she's gonna want more than just good pipe. She's gonna want a little bit more of that affection. She's gonna want to have you out there with her, even though she knows that that's not something that you're going to have to do. Like, she's gonna want more, and she's gonna want the girlfriend benefits even though she isn't the girlfriend. And then that becomes an issue for you as a guy, because at that point in time it'll start to feel like you're sort of having two girlfriends and one needs to go, because it's not like the both of them are going to be comfortable dating you at the same exact time. So what happens? Now you have to start asking yourself if you're willing to drop your girlfriend. And it seems like it's going back to the same original question, but it sort of kinda isn't, but it is, but it isn't. But at this point in time, now that's when you'll probably want to talk to one of your homies, or you'll probably want to talk to the boys about this, if your boys are the type to kind of give you advice and you feel like you can open up to them about this shit. Because at that point in time, now they have to help you decide if you're willing to drop your girlfriend or not, which will now bring the new dilemma of, is she really worth it? Like, is the best friend really worth what it is that you think she's worth, or what it is that you feel she's worth? Because guys will always have this problem where we kind of get pussy whipped sometimes, or we enjoy the pussy a little too much that it starts to cloud our judgment, and it can make us make very shitty moves. Now, I'm not sure about babes. Like I said earlier on, I don't know how babes would react to this, or if they get dick whipped in more or less the same way. But for us guys, we know very well that sometimes we might just be pussy whipped. Sometimes we might just be getting it really good from this one shorty, but it's not like there's that much that she really has to offer. And I kid you the hell not, that is probably one of the things that you and the boys would want to avoid at all costs. When you end up dropping a good girlfriend for just a babe that was good at fucking but could possibly be problematic later on, you end up being put in a scenario where you actually realize that you fucked up, and going back is probably the worst decision that you can make. Guys never want to be in that position. We don't want to make such an illogical and stupid decision, because good women, great women, don't come by very often. So now it has to become that question of, is she worth dropping or not? And now at that point, if you have a smart set of boys, or if you have a smart homie who's with you, then he'll probably ask you a pretty simple question, because it's not hard to actually decipher if it's just a babe that's good with pussy, or if it's a babe that could make a potentially better girlfriend. Because it's a simple question of asking, what else does this babe offer besides the pussy? Like, do you like her for more than the pussy? Do you like her because she's just fun? Or do you actually like what it is that she tells you? Like, does she seem to be, I don't know, smarter than your shorty? Does she treat you nicer than your girlfriend does? Like, obviously the sex part, that one could be a no-brainer, but it's a simple question of, like, does this babe do more for you than your current girlfriend does? Or can she do more for you that you've seen she could be able to do more than your girlfriend does? And at that point, if it's a yes, then you probably might want to end your current relationship. If it's a no, then over there you'll just realize that you're pussy whipped, and there's a very good chance that if she's demanding too much, by she I mean the best friend, then you might need to end things between the two of you. She might hate you, she might make shit fucked up, but it's better for the both of you if you just stop things at that point. Now, if you feel like the hell that you might get if you dropped your girlfriend and ended up getting into a relationship with her best friend immediately is worth, the entire relationship and the possible future that you might have, or, the future is even worth more than that, then by all means, at that point in time, it'll just be a matter of how is it that you'll end up breaking up with your girlfriend. But all in all, that's normally how us guys would probably handle that dilemma, or at least that's how me and quite possibly a good chunk of my boys would definitely handle a dilemma like that. But all in all, guys usually prefer to avoid such dilemmas because they're incredibly complicated, just the same exact way I've explained that entire scenario for you guys. And the worst part about it is, because that final question of is this other babe worth it can be very, very complicated, because you don't know if you're pussy whipped or if that best friend is a demon in hiding. that shit can actually end up going very sideways no matter how well you think you handle that entire scenario. So I'm just gonna say this to sort of conclude it, especially for the guys, because this should help a hell of a lot more in that decision making. When it comes to getting to such a scenario, usually there's a question that you kind of have to ask yourself. And I don't know, I think this one probably applies to babes as well, because it's not entirely even just about the other person. Instead of asking yourself if the best friend, if the close friend, if the brother, if the relative is worth your partner or you dropping your partner, you should probably ask yourself if that best friend, if that potential soulmate that you might have, taking it back to the original joke and statement, is worth not your partner, but worth the entire relationship and the reputational damage that you might get. Because at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. Because sometimes you might think that just because someone is better, you should drop your current person for this better one, but you realize that the kind of relationship that you had with your now ex was way better than this other person who you've now gotten into a relationship with. And while reputation might be considered subjective for most people, I'd say it boils down to that main thing. Is you being with a best friend worth the entire relationship that you've built up until that point? But all in all, maybe I might be wrong about this. Maybe there's something about that entire scenario that I got wrong. I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On IG, it is at Breaktime on Westside. On Facebook, it is also at Breaktime on Westside. And on Twitter, you can slide into my personal DMs, which is at Bagaka the D. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end. And if you are listening through Castbox, feel free to drop your thoughts and comments below, and I will attend to them accordingly. And I will catch you guys on the next break.